Hey guys, it's Ashley. I mean, obviously, not like a clone or anything. You can see me, it's obviously me. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a life update and talk about how my audition went today. At first, I was like, I don't want to record myself talking about my audition and posting it because that seems really narcissistic and really like egocentric and like who flipping cares? Like, and then I realized I literally post on Facebook about my life every single day. So you already know that I can be really egocentric, unfortunately. But that being said, life update. I chipped my teeth, so I now have a gap in my tooth that was not there before. I'm not really that worried about it. I think that people who have gaps in their front teeth are usually really attractive. I've got other dental work that I'm more concerned about than the gap. Like if it just stays there, I don't know. I kind of like it. So anyway, that aside, I wanted to talk about my audition today. Hopefully, I am allowed to post this. I used to keep an acting journal back when I was in college. It was part of my assignment was to write every day like something that I learned about acting or even something that I learned about myself that I could draw from my own experiences. I stopped keeping it after college because I would do acting like every once in a blue moon and it wasn't really a passion for me anymore. And lately, just kind of like at the end of 2021, I got really, really into it again and just like kind of reignited that passion. And I did show after show and am getting like really into it. And I'm pretty proud of myself because I've come a really, really long way in audition processes. My very first audition ever, my mom made me do it, and I broke down crying because I didn't really want to do it. And then the amount of confidence and comfort that I've gotten with myself in auditions since then has been amazing. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I struggle with self-esteem like terribly, and to be able to see something good in myself and recognize it and praise myself for it is is really good for me. And I think that it's okay to be proud of yourself, and it's okay to praise yourself and to like things about yourself, because I think when you do, it empowers others to do the same. I know there's like people that I follow on Instagram and I'm like, oh, this girl is so cool, she's so pretty, she wears a whole lot of pink, and when I was in high school I got made fun of for carrying a pink backpack, but I was like, she's so confident in it and she's just so herself and she just seems like so not conceited, but just seems like so full of self-love. And I'm like, if this girl can love herself, then it's okay for me to love myself. It's okay for me to be who I am. So that's kind of why I'm putting myself out here, even though this is probably like really, really cringy and people are probably gonna make fun of me, but I don't care. Go ahead and make fun of me, because you can make fun of me all you want if it makes somebody feel good about themselves. Wow, that was so cheesy. Anyway, so my audition today, getting into the content of this video, I auditioned for a Renaissance festival, and the audition was really cool. I've been to probably hundreds of auditions in my lifetime now. I've auditioned for Disney World a few times. I've auditioned for Universal Studios. I've gotten callbacks at both of those places. Never gotten through. Done community theater auditions, done movie auditions, all kinds of stuff. And now I'm doing improv. So I saw the listing for Ren Fair auditions, and they needed improv actors for it. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. I got this Renaissance hair and this Renaissance neckline going on here, and yeah. So I went to audition, and what was unique about this audition versus others is that most auditions that I go to, I'm auditioning with a specific character in mind, or I'm familiar with a play or familiar with a show, and that, excuse me, I don't know why I'm having that liquid in my mouth, but it's so weird. Anyway, that I'm auditioning with, I think it's toothpaste. Anyway, sorry, ADHD. But, like that I know what the character is and that I'm trying to match my personality and change my mannerisms and show how I can portray or interpret a particular character. Rim Fair auditions were different because I basically just had to present any monologue of all of my choosing, and how it worked were the people on the casting committee, basically, instead of me trying to adapt to what they wanted, they took what they saw in me and my personality and gave me a character of how they saw me. Like, for example, I walked into the room and there was this girl there and she was playing the ukulele and she was singing this song about being in love with a mermaid. And from what I heard of her audition, apparently, I guess things didn't work out with her and the mermaid, so she fell in love with the mermaid's sister. And apparently the mermaid's sister had like a fish top half and a human bottom legs, and then it was like her tale of woe. And the girl was really funny and had a really great energy. And so after that, they're like, okay, that's a great audition. You can clearly play an instrument. Here's what we want to do. We want to see how you can improvise. We're going to go let you, take a moment, get off stage. It wasn't really a stage. It was like an open room. And go think about, basically do a whole improvised monologue and come back and talk about, she wanted to audition for the court. And they're like, talk about being on the court and but like something goes wrong, and they're like, something like crazy goes wrong. So this girl comes back. I'm not going to share like super personal details of her audition, partly because I don't remember them, and partly because that's her tricks and her bag of tricks in her hat, or I don't know how that expression goes, but something like that. That's her parlor trick. I don't want to give away her secrets. But anyway, so she did come back, and she was like climbing onto like the casting table and kind of like rolling in the floor and just like really, really playing up the comedy. And so the casting directors were kind of like, okay, clearly you have comedic chops, and they're like, we see that you want to be on the royal court. We see you as a court jester. You can clearly play musical instruments. Would you be interested in being a court jester? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because like she's showing what she has to offer. She was hilarious. She was fun. She was engaging. And I love how, even though she was trying out for a specific role, that they were able to see those qualities in her and bring out, I guess, the best in her where she could really shine and do her best. There was a girl that auditioned right after her, and she did a monologue that she was a fortune teller. And I think I've seen this monologue online before, but basically the monologue was that she was looking into the crystal ball to see somebody's past and to see what they had for lunch that morning. And at the end of the monologue, it's revealed that the reason she knew everything that her client had for lunch was because she could see it on her client's dress, because her client had been very messy and got it all over her dress. And so then she had to do an improvised monologue. They gave her the character of matchmaker, which is apparently a position they have open there. And again, I love it. I love how they took her personality and her willingness to engage with others and were like, this is what role that this fits into. Something that she predicted in the future to come true, but something went horribly wrong with it. And if I was listening correctly, I'm assuming her character was bisexual, and that her character fell in love with a beautiful woman with long golden locks of hair and a big muscly dude, and apparently she was like devastated and heartbroken because the beautiful woman and the muscly dude apparently got together, and like she just like overplayed it with like big energy, and it was super fun to watch. And I included this in my story because in my own monologue I built upon what she did. So anyway, part of the story I really wanted to share, because I'm a little bit conceited and getting to the part about me, all about me and my audition. No, I'm just kidding. I did a monologue from the movie Stardust, which is my favorite movie of all time, and also my favorite book. I have multiple copies of it, I do believe. Here is, oh look, here's the illustrated copy. Haha. Anyway, so I did a monologue from the movie Stardust, and I did the monologue where the character Elaine is telling the character Tristan that she has fallen in love with him. Spoiler alert. And he is not in a human form at the time, so she doesn't realize that he is actually knowing what she's saying. And she is a star who has looked down upon Earth for thousands and thousands of years. And within this monologue, she is telling Tristan that basically she's watched love for thousands of years and she knows what it is, and therefore that's how she knows that she's in love with him. Tristan is in love with someone else, and so she basically is telling him that that if he wanted her, that she wouldn't ask for anything else in return, like this other woman is asking for. And it's a really beautiful monologue. I personally have never been in love, so it's a really hard to empathize with, but I'm a hopeless romantic, so I love that monologue so much. And usually you have to do a monologue from a published play when you're auditioning for a play, and something a little bit more open like this where you could do your own personality and kind of do your own thing. It's a great monologue. I have a version of it on my YouTube channel. I've definitely improved it since then because this time I was really working on inflections of my voice and making like deeper tones whenever I felt a little bit more angry, and just being a little bit more committed to it. I can watch the old monologue that I have here on my YouTube channel back when I had short hair, and I could probably upload a new one and see that there's been a lot of difference and growth since that personal monologue. But I am rambling, and the reason I'm sharing this is, again, I'm very proud of myself because I've come a long way. After I was done with my monologue, the woman there was like, hey, that was really beautiful. That was beautiful work. And I mean, sex and dating and boys and cool and all, but have you ever had someone tell you that you did a beautiful monologue? But no, that just made my heart glow. So then they asked me, can I do improvisation? And I was like, I'm kind of doing an improv team thing, so yeah. And so they gave me a moment to go collect myself, and they're like, basically, this is how we see you. They're like, you're gonna be like the most romantic person in the entire world, and they're like, you are going to be madly in love with everyone and everything. And I know I come across really negative on Facebook, but when I'm not suffering depression, I definitely am someone who is very much in love with everyone and everything. My best guy friend and I were just joking today because I told him something was my favorite movie, and he was like, every movie is your favorite movie. I was like, yes, and every book is my favorite book, and every animal is my favorite animal, and every food is my favorite food. And yes, and my friend also joked with me, my best friend. I was like, do you know what makes me happy? And she was like, breathing, oxygen, hot people, that straw you're drinking out of. Like, so yeah, I can definitely relate to that, and I'm glad that they saw that more positive side of my personality and not just like the negative depression. I'm glad they saw that more bubbly, whimsical side. And they're like, okay, so here's the challenge. And they're like, you're like basically going to be this person who's like obsessed with romance and just super romantic. And you just think everything is the best thing in the world, but you're going to be really obsessed with a mundane object. And then at the end of your monologue, that we are going to be like, really? That's the thing that she's in love with? Which I feel like that's how my friends are about me when I tell them about like basically anything and how excited I am about like a new Netflix series or anything, and then they're just like, really? I drew upon my own personal experiences, and I also drew upon the character Giselle from Enchanted by Amy Adams. And like, so I for my monologue I did a British accent. For my improvised monologue I dropped my British accent and adapted some of Giselle's mannerisms, but kind of like made them my own. So if you've seen Enchanted, Giselle, like, she does her hands like this and everything is lovely and oh my goodness. And I did this thing where they're like, hey, are you ready, Krista? Because that's my legal first name, by the way. And I was like, I'm ready if you're ready. And so I was like walked up and I tried to like command the whole entire space. Like I walked all over the whole space as if the whole space was the village. And I grabbed a cup off of the table. And I was like, oh, it's such a lovely day in this village. And I drank out of the cup. And I was like, oh, this is the best meat I've ever tasted in the past 24 hours. And like, they were laughing. They loved it. And I went up to one of the girls that was there auditioning. Hopefully did not make her super uncomfortable or like violate her in any way. But as I mentioned earlier, there was the woman who had fallen in love with a blonde within her own monologue, and I called that back within my improvised monologue because I thought it would be cool to kind of initiate cast chemistry before we were even cast, to kind of show I'm listening and I'm wanting to connect and make all of this one story. So I went to the girl that was sitting next to me at the audition, and I was like, oh, you have such lovely blonde hair. And I was like, you know, there's a fortune teller here in the city who loves blonde hair. And like, again, casting committee was like dying laughing. The girl was like, and I was like, okay, is she telling me she doesn't want to be included and she would very much like to be excluded from this narrative? Is that what she's telling me? But I tried to be respectful of her, but I was like, oh, really? You're not interested? But love is love. You should give it a chance. And she actually got out of her chair and like sat in the floor and like did this. And I was like, I hope that she's acting along and playing along with me. I hope I'm not making her uncomfortable. So then I just like let it go. And I went around and like I went to the up to the casting table, and the main guy was wearing glasses, so I went with that as my mundane object that I was fascinated with. And like I made eye contact with him and I was like, oh, what is this garment upon your face? And I was like, what does it do? And he was like, it helps you to see better. And I was like, can it help you see into the future? And like just being like really silly with it. And they were like, oh, it might could. And I was like, oh, where can I get it? Can I wear it as a bracelet? And just silly things, as improvised monologues tend to be. So after that, I sat down and they're like, so do you like children? And I was like thinking that's a weird question, but I was like, yeah, I love kids. And I think the guy was like, he's just asking you that because he has kids. That's the only reason he wants to know. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So then they were like, how do you feel about being a fairy? And I was like, oh, that would be really cool. And so they gave me a rehearsal schedule, and I left out a funny part of the story. So like after I did my monologue, the main guy turns to the guy to his right and he goes, she was really weird. That is like the most flattering feedback that I've ever got at an audition. And the lady was like, she was not weird, she's just really drunk, which I loved because that was part of my character that I was playing. And but they gave me an audition schedule, and as I was leaving, they were like, hey, did you grab a Ren Fair lanyard? And I was like, no, not yet. And they're like, hey, grab your lanyard. And they're like, you're gonna fall in love with it. And I was like, I am. It's awesome. It's beautiful. And yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I have been cast yet. If not, I'm totally okay with that. It was a fun audition experience. It was my second time having to do an entirely improvised monologue for an audition. The first time that I was asked to do it, I was shocked and basically just got on stage and started complaining. And I wasn't even acting, I was just complaining. And then today it was easier because I knew what to expect and I knew kind of more of how to create a character, and now I've done a few improv shows, so I knew a little bit more of how to think more quickly on my feet. And yeah, so I'm really excited about how that went. I'm excited about the great feedback. I'm excited they said it was beautiful work. And as I was leaving the room, the woman was like, oh, that was lovely. So I think there's a good chance that I will get cast. If not, I will not be too surprised, because I've also been in situations where people have literally more or less told me that I had a part and then I didn't get it. Which I'm not offended by either, because that happens. Sometimes you do well and somebody comes along and they do even better. Or sometimes you do awesome, but you're not the right fit. Kind of like dating. But anyway, but yeah, it was fun and I wanted to share it with everyone. I can't always reply to my friends or like tell everyone how everything went. So yeah, and just also kind of wanted to keep this from like my own personal records and personal kind of like video diary. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you've stuck all the way to the end, thank you so much. Bye.